I'm so excited to be back for Find It Out Friday again today. Listen, we started talking about sound last week, and we've got a little bit more to talk about today. And I think that's just perfect because Taylor Swift released an album of music on November 10th. So we're going on like 4 weeks here. And just yesterday, I got tickets to go see it live. So if you want to talk about the best sounds you'll ever hear, that's going to be me, listening to the best sound any of us will ever hear. We talked about how sound is made of waves, just like light. And when things vibrate, they send out these waves of sound that reach our eardrums, and they vibrate into our eardrums, and we turn them into sounds in our brain, just like we turn light waves into images in our brain. So all of these wavelengths do different things out there in the universe. Just like some pieces of paper absorb light, and then we see different colors by that, some objects absorb sound and some objects reflect sound. Some objects even slow sound down. The first thing I want to talk about is objects that change the wavelength of sound. So we talked about translucent objects with light, where when the wavelength hits that object, it kind of scatters on the other side. Well, things do that with sound too. As the wavelength approaches, say, water, it might be going at one speed, but when it hits into the water, as it travels through, it's not able to move as fast or in the same motion. For this, I want to show you, we're going to pretend that this side is not in the water, and this side is in the water. So here Ella is going to show us what it will look like when a wavelength travels from the air into the water, and how not only the speed, but the shape of the wavelength will change. So here she's moving in a certain speed and shape, and it totally changes when she's traveling through the water. Sometimes even gets a little caught up. That, friends, is why when you try to talk underwater, it kind of sounds all gurgled and got like, because the water literally slows down the wavelengths and changes the pitches by changing their shape. The next thing we'll talk about are objects that absorb sound. So a lot of times when you go into a gymnasium, you see those big white boards up on the sides. Well, their job is to absorb sound. A gymnasium without those, with bouncing balls and people yelling, is so loud that you wouldn't even be able to handle it. So those absorb sound. This material here is pretty soft, especially if you compare it to, say, the door or the wall. So now Ella's going to show you what it looks like when a sound wave runs into something that absorbs it. So here's Ella being our wavelength of sound, and she's going to run into an object that will absorb the sound. She got stuck in the soft material, and the sound stops traveling. The final thing we're going to talk about are objects that are hard and reflect sound. So when the wavelength of sound runs into a hard object, it bounces off. And friends, this is what we call an echo. So Mia is going to be our sound wave, so she's going to move around. Dane and Tessa and Ella are all hard objects that will reflect the sound. So as the sound comes into Dane, it moves in this way. Put your hands up like this. She runs in, and as she hits it, it bounces off. And as she runs into something else, it continues to bounce around, bouncing off of all of the hard objects. And this is what happens when we get an echo. The sound continues to move all through the area, and we hear it over and over again every time it passes our ears because it's bouncing. So that's it, friends. Sound either just travels through the air and it's not impeded, or those wavelengths have to go through something that changed them, like water, or they're absorbed by a soft material, or reflected by a hard material. Not very complicated, is it? I hope you enjoyed our visit today. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye!